Saw it. Yes. Okay, I think we are live. Is there? Can people check it? Are we live?
Checking.
Are we live?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here we go.
Hello, hello.
Perfect. Hold on. We'll get there.
Hold on.
Okay.
It is what I call my mom's
we are
shampoo.
live.
That's in the bathroom.
All right. Thanks everybody for coming out here to EthVan Talks Decontrol here every Thursday. Appreciate you showing up here today. I know we've got a few other events. There's a shout out to the people out in Austin. Hi, everybody in Austin that's not here, hanging out in the basement with us. And I know that there's another couple events going on in the city as well. But yeah, we're going to dive into some stuff tonight. And then I think this weekend, so if anybody wants to do some running, there's the Nouns Run on Saturday. Probably a good time for people to get back into that. You know, summer's coming. I'm going to get that running bod in shape, right? Instead of sitting in front of the computer all the time. Anyhow, so noon, meet at the Cactus Club in Cole Harbour. And we'll go for a small little 5K run. Get all loosened up and do that. And then I think next week we have the ZK Research Group is showing up. They'll be doing that on Wednesday. And then we're back here for EthVan next week. Yeah, so that's kind of what's going on. If anybody out there is interested in doing a talk or wants to, share some stuff, we're always, open to getting people on the schedule. So please reach out to us in Discord, Telegram, Twitter. Get a hold of, anybody that you see that's been involved in all this, and we'll try and figure something out. So, okay, today we are going to get into a little discussion here about security.
Hacking.
Hacking. We're going to call it, we're just not going to call it security anymore. We're going to call it hacking.
Yes.
That's literally what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Okay, so let's, with no further ado here, let's get into it. Let's, so first, who are you? What's going on?
Hello. I am Jazzy, and I'm the co-founder of Zelic. We do blockchain hacking. We do security, but also a lot of hacking. My background, I've been hacking for the better part of the last decade. I used to hack web applications, got into binary stuff. I used to hack Android phones for Google. And then I'm like, all of that hacking is fun, but what really needs a lot of security or hacking is blockchains. Because back in 2021, I got onto BSC because BSC was the most popular thing. And I used to do a bit of MEV here and there, and I used to read a lot of audit reports. And unfortunately, most of them were not very good. And luckily enough, I am a very good hacker. So I'm like, well, I can do all of this. So me and my friend, we got together one evening and we're like, why don't we start doing some hacking for blockchain? Then we made an auditing firm. And then a lot of people liked our audits. We hired more friends. They all liked all of our friends. We hired more friends. And now we have about 40 people doing a lot of blockchain hacking.
Beautiful. Okay, so let's go back a little bit here. So you found BSC. You said, oh, there was forks of projects coming out on there constantly. There was just people deploying new projects constantly, new tokens, new whatevers, right?
Yeah.
What was the first one you found where you were like, hey, I can maybe, I don't know if we want to use the word, we're going to continue to use the word hack, but which was the first one that you ever hacked or you were able to find an exploit or you said, hey, there's some extractable value here that was more than the norm and you were able to identify. Yeah,
it's the one I also wrote a thread about back in May of 2021. There was uranium finance on BSC that instantly got up to like $50 million of TVL in like a course of 2 days. It turns out they modified Uniswap and they forked the Uniswap code, and turns out they don't know how to like modify the fees very well. So their calculations were off by a factor of 10, which means you could send in like $1 and get like 10 times the swap back because they modified the core invariant of Uniswap to account for the new fees. And I go on Telegram. I'm like, hey guys, who's the developer here? I feel like, who's the developer here? I feel like I found this like security problem. I didn't tell what the problem was. I'm like, hey, there's a security problem. I want to talk to like the team here. And there were 6 people in the chat who instantly were like, FUD, 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 and banned me. Like, great. 3 hours later, they lost $50 million. It was very sad. And I'm like, remember, I told you, and no one listened to me. They're like, yes, sorry. But it was funny. So like, they relaunched. They had another bug, which was so they had a staking contract. The staking contract, when they were paying out rewards, they were not actually like basically accounting for the rewards being paid out, which means you could like basically collect your reward multiple times. Or like you could deposit, withdraw, deposit again, and that would like increase your total deposit amount, which would increase your like, which will increase your calculations for rewards. And you could do that 100 times. So your reward calculation is like now insanely inflated. And I was like, hey, there seems to be a problem with the staking contract here. Like, no, there isn't. And then 2 days later, there were a bunch of people who were just like basically MEVing it by just like, all of them had like max rewards for like every second. So they were fighting for who can extract the most rewards out every block. And then they shut down the protocol and ran away.
Okay, so if they would have listened to Sir Jazzy early on, they may have been able to not run away and maybe could have kept, millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah, I remember it's like they lost $50 million, which is like a very, very big hack. But there's not a lot of people who even know about this hack, even though it should be like I think it was like one of the larger BSC hacks. Mm-hmm. But like this was happened in the course of a week, and everyone has just forgotten about it. They're like, all the money is just like moving around BSC summer.
Mm-hmm. Well, no.
You should turn it on. Yeah.
Do you think they hacked themselves?
There's a strong possibility. As you know, BSC, I have a lot of fun stories from BSC. Like, there's a lot of projects who were just like trying to come up with like the weirdest Ponzi, and they would not know how to like write the code for it. I remember there was this project where they had this thing called a Russian roulette swap.
Oh. You
would so like what it does is like basically you have a 1 in 6 chance of doubling your like swap amount, basically the amount you get back from the contract. There's a 1 in 6 chance. But of course, number 1, they don't know how to use randomness properly. Number 2, they don't know that swaps are atomic, which means you do the swap. If you don't get the amount of money back, you can revert the whole transaction. So, I remember there were like 6 or 7 forks of this exact same mechanism, that there was just like one address I was watching just like go back to back every 2 hours, hack each one of them by just like sending like a bunch of transactions, always getting the double amount back and dumping the token. Happened like 8 projects back to back.
So
Wow.
Can I ask something? This brings us to, so this could be labeled MEV attackers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or someone exploiting kind of the inefficiencies in these contracts or the blockchain. Do you think kind of MEV is net positive, net negative, or kind of what we've seen with the low carb cruiser kind of, case where, $25 million got exploited from these MEV kind of attackers? Do you think this could, is this kind of controversial in the security kind of scene or, community? Like, do they feel like code is law for security kind of auditors and whatnot, or do we really think that, oh well, this is stealing, this should be law enforcement kind of offense and whatnot?
So for the Russian roulette thing, I don't think like that was like directly MEV, because that was just a bug in the contract where they don't know how to use randomness properly. But for like general MEV, it is like a very interesting question, especially after the low carb crusader hack. So for context, what low carb crusader did was like there were a bunch of MEV bots who were just like doing normal sandwiching for a bunch of these tokens. And there was this 2 guys from MIT who found this bug in Flashbot's relay, where they could essentially unbundle their bundles for the sandwich, and they could steal the money from the MEV bots. And so basically what they did was they ended up doing a sandwich for the MEV transaction itself. which is like a very funny thing because like all the MEV people got MEV themselves, but later on, as it turns out, those MEV people went to DOJ, and now they're claiming that they got exploited, which is like a very, very funny argument. So I mean, I read the DOJ report, and the DOJ, whoever wrote the report is very smart. Like that report is like technically like super accurate, but
It's actually scary accurate that the government
Yeah.
wrote such a detailed report.
like I was baffled, and like I'm like, how does the DOJ find like a crypto native person in DOJ? That's like not very common, but like it is still like I don't think like they should be able to just go and claim that like what they were doing before was MEV, but what happened to them was not MEV. As for the argument about like code is law, like there's a lot of like crypto ethos people who believe that like code is law, and like if you get hacked, that was just part of the design of the project, and you know like you should just like follow the rules. But there's also the other side of like legal side, which I'm not very aware of, but like what I've heard is that yes, like there is the code is law, but there is also a strong part on like what the intent was behind the code and like what the intent was behind the attacker. So if the intent there was just to like exploit it and steal money, that is illegal. Whereas even though the law says it isn't, the intent there still makes it technically illegal based on my minimal like law knowledge.
And maybe another. I have a few questions for tonight. So if anyone wants to ask, like, please just like cut me before. But just last one. Okay. I'll go. Wait, go for it.
Yeah.
I need to click on the button.
You're good.
It
It's
didn't
on.
sound on. I'm usually louder than that.
It is on.
Just a subtle point there is like, if it's market manipulation, it's because there was a bug, or they're saying there's a bug in the relay code, but it seems like it's the DOJ that believes code is law because they have some understanding of what the natural market that everyone expects, which includes MEV. So they're the ones that are code is law, and we're the ones that are like, the code was not law, right? There was a bug that no one foresaw. There's like the behavior of it, I guess, rather than the intent expressed in the source code, how it's intended to work. And I think that there's just like a subtle weird inversion there. No,
I mean, at least in the DOJ thing, like what they were saying was like so that bug being in Flashbots was actually an exploit, and so that bug being there, those group of people that exploited the MEV bots, they were actually in the wrong there, even though.
But isn't that assuming that MEV is the natural, legal state of things?
I mean, if you think of like normal MEV where you're sandwiching,
Yeah.
like it is very hard to argue that like it's a bug, but it's also hard to argue that like it is the natural state of things. But like
yeah, that's what I mean. It's like
yeah.
an unintentional effect of the protocol.
There's something also like code is law, but law is also law. So
Yeah.
Even if
And one is sovereign over the other.
well, one has a military behind it and one doesn't. So
Very true. Very true. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. We'll go back to the other question. But thanks.
I would be curious. So one question was, I've heard many things about the Move programming language. I've heard many things about Rust for smart contracts, and Solidity and whatnot. Could you give us a primer on what is, on the security perspective, why Move is potentially like more secure, or Rust code is more apparently secure than Solidity? I know Solidity has all this recursion thing that can happen. Would love to not necessarily dive too much, but is this true in your opinion that the Move VM is in theory more secure to build on top, or easier to prevent bugs, basically?
Great question. Yeah, I mean, so like there's a lot of like history behind it. So like people that say like Rust by default is more secure, I think that's not correct, because like if you look at like Solana, you have a lot of frameworks on top of Solana that make Solana more secure. But if you were to like normally develop like raw Rust on Solana, it is very easy to fuck up and cause a lot of bugs, because like raw Rust on Solana is like everything is a U8 pointer. Everything is just a block of memory. Everything is an account, which is a very interesting abstraction. But that abstraction also is like very non-intuitive to think about as like a developer. And so like originally when Solana did not have Anchor, there were a lot of hacks just based on the pure design of the blockchain. So like using Rust doesn't make your like blockchain inherently secure. Now, what makes Move different from like, for example, Solidity is like Solidity, from like what I can just see from like my view, is like Solidity was made in like 2016. It was made to like onboard web developers on the blockchain. So a lot of the ideas you get in Solidity are inspired from JavaScript. So JavaScript, as I used to do a lot of web security before, and JavaScript is not known to be like the nicest and the securest language as well. So when you copied a lot of like JavaScript concepts over to the blockchain language, which has its own like weird intricacies on the virtual machine level itself, where you can have function calls that can do recursive function calls, that did end up causing a lot of problems. So like Solidity was not like designed to be like a blockchain native language. It was designed to be like a easier way to onboard web developers onto the blockchain, because it's very easy to learn Solidity if you have done JavaScript before. Now, Move comes a bit later. Move started developing around 2017, 18, when they had learned a few lessons. And like Move originally was designed by a Libre team to be like a blockchain native language. It's like this designed on how we think about blockchains, how we think about assets on the chain, how we think about like resources on the chain. So like Move's like design was like more blockchain conscious than like Solidity, which is why like how they do certain things, as in like how you have assets on the chain, like all of the things that they do, like all of those are designed for blockchains, which inherently like makes it like nicer to write and like easier to like reason about. It's also a reason that Move has a formal verification prover as part of the language, because like it is my opinion that like blockchain, if you're writing like a sufficiently complex protocol that has like non-intuitive math or like non-intuitive properties, you should formally verify at least the core properties of the protocol. But formal verification for EVM is very hard, because there's a lot of moving blocks and you build on like money Legos. And until all the Legos are verified, you can't verify your protocol, because it depends on like Legos from all these other protocols that you build on top of. Whereas like Move was designed to be like formally verifiable, like as a core function, which meant that it is easier to formally verify a lot of like same properties on Move versus Solidity. It's like, yeah, like I just think like Move was like designed with like a better like blockchain design in mind. But again, like that doesn't necessarily make it that much secure, because what that does is like that makes the Move VM a lot more complicated, because like Move has a lot of core security properties, such as like they have native objects, and to like work with these native objects, you need to like statically verify the execution of like how your contract will execute on those native objects. And that requires, and what that does is like that makes your blockchain much more complicated. If you look at EVM as a virtual machine is very simple. We have like less than 100 opcodes, and it's a very simple state machine. Move, as their Move VM, is much larger and much more complicated. They have a lot of more moving parts. They have to do like pre-deployment verification, after deployment execution verification, static analysis on all the parts to make sure that you don't break any of the core Move invariants. There's just a lot of ways, like there's just a lot of like core properties they have to verify. And there's a lot of ways that can go wrong. So like Move, if implemented perfectly in an ideal world, would be more secure. But like again, Move is very complicated, so there's obviously a lot of bugs in just the language and the execution itself. We also found one like last year on like Sui, which is also like, I mean like Sui or Aptos, or like basically all the Move VMs, which was part of the Move bytecode verifier. Move bytecode verifier is basically this program that is responsible for all of the security of like Move protocol, like all the security of like Move. So like Move provides a lot of like core security invariants, and like you have an object, that object can only be stored once. For example, if you have $10, those $10 can only be like represented in a single way. Like if I give you $10, you cannot duplicate it. You cannot like multiply money. You can't do a lot of things. For example, Solidity, everything is accounted as like balances, right? It's just all integers. There's no native objects. In moves, there's native objects that you can represent for like hard assets. And the problem there becomes like who actually who actually keeps track of like all these objects and make sure that like you don't duplicate them or you don't do anything like bad with them. And so there's a lot of ways that can go wrong because like statically verifying a program is very complicated. There's a lot of like programming language, math, and knowledge behind it. So there's a lot of ways that can go wrong, and MoveVM has historically had bugs in the past like few years. But yeah.
I really like the last question, so I'll expand a bit on that. So first, with EVM, do you think there is room for creating a better programming language effectively than Solidity? Do you think that's kind of where it's going to happen in the future? Second question is for Solana, right? We all know that Rust is very difficult to write, especially natively. So most people use Anchor. So for a developer onboarding to Solana, do you think that the default way is to just use Anchor? And under what circumstances do you think it makes sense for developer to write native Rust versus using Anchor?
All right. So the first question, so EVM with a new language, I feel like we're at a point with EVM where it's like so widely adopted that there's a critical mass of like Solidity developers, and everyone writes their program in Solidity that like it will be hard to migrate people over. Like, I mean, we have the Python one. What is it called?
Viper.
Yeah, Viper. Curve is in Viper, but like there's not a lot of like large projects that are using Viper. So like, yes, we can make a better language for EVM, but like it will be hard to like make people move over because there's a lot. One of the main reasons like people build on like EVM or like all the new chains is just because of the developer resources we have for EVM. EVM has so many blogs, so much resources for anyone to learn about EVM for the past like 7-8 years at this point. So it'll be hard for like a new language to compete on that merit, especially for EVM. For the second question, for a new developer onboarding into Solana, so it is a bit of a trade-off that if you learn Anchor first, your life would be easier at the start, but as soon as you hit like any of the bugs in Anchor, like the amount of time you spend would be much higher to debug them because you don't understand how Anchor works under the hood. So like for a developer who learns like raw Solana or Rust before, and then slowly transitions into Anchor, so he understands all the abstractions Anchor builds on, I think it will save them a lot of time in the future compared to just like directly learning Anchor and then like hitting their head on like this problem and then spending a lot more time later on learning the internals of Anchor. So like basically like you need to understand the abstractions Anchor's built on. Like I don't think you need to understand them like completely, that you understand how the Solana like VM works, how the BPF execution works, but you need to at least understand how Solana works a little bit, how accounts work, how PDAs actually work, how are they allocated, how are they deallocated, how does all of that happen before you can start using all the abstractions built on top, because like that just gives you a much stronger base to build on. And also it makes you a much better developer because you can like think of your programs in like different abstractions, and like if I want to do this thing in the most efficient way, I can do this in raw Solana this way. How can I leverage Anchor to make me do the same thing? Yeah.
Perfect. You got one?
Yeah, it's just so I have a question for, like, it's mainly for Zelik. Let's guide that way. And yourself, Jazzy, at the same time. What would be your wish list for customers coming to Zelik, or the way people are basically like submitting their project for audit? Do you think they should go through kind of a crowdsourced kind of auditor kind of system similar to like Code Arena, whatever that is, which is arguably, like kind of guardians and whatnot, and then go after to professional? What should be the life cycle for a developer submitting like basically like a protocol before getting to market, in your opinion, and what you think should be the standard or the blueprint?
Yes, I have talked about. I that is a great question as well. I have talked to a lot of customers about this. So the standard life cycle we recommend to all of our customers is, first of all, like even before the audit, like when you internally develop a protocol, make sure you write down core invariants of the protocol. Hey, here is a protocol. Make sure you have a very good spec of the protocol and what the protocol is supposed to do and what it's not supposed to do. Once you have that, make sure you write unit tests for all the core invariants, and if you can, write fuzz tests for all those core invariants. Like essentially, like you should, for an ideal project to come to us, where we spend most of the time like actually deep diving in the project versus like surface level bugs, is when there's full code coverage. We know all the functionality works. We know the protocol as developed by you works well. Like now we just need to like really go deep and find all the weird edge cases, not just like, hey, your withdraw isn't working because you forgot to check for like payable, because you forgot to like write payable here. There's a lot of like customers that come to us who just haven't tested their code. So most of the, like instead of like spending the time looking for security bugs, we just like end up running into functionality bugs.
So
which is,
quick question here. Just
Yeah.
you mentioned like fuzz and fuzzing and whatnot. So walk us through that. That's another thing too that we should
Yeah.
probably touch on, because like I've heard this term a bunch. Like I kind of have an idea like of.
yeah.
But what is like fuzzing? How does that help? And again, I think that kind of ties into what you were just talking about here. So
Exactly. So like I can do breakdown of fuzzing. So like fuzzing is apparently, or fuzzing is like relatively new to like the blockchain space. It didn't really exist like 4-ish years ago, but like fuzzing has been a large so like fuzzing has been around in like Web 2 security for like 2 decades. Most of the work that I did at Google for hacking Androids, my co-founder used to hack iPhones. A lot of it, there's a large part of it that is just fuzzing. What fuzzing is like, hey, like you have this program that does these things. Now, I want to make the program do something unexpected. So I'm just going to throw in a bunch of like random inputs and then, throw in a bunch of random inputs and then
so these would be with like a script or bots or something like this, and just keep hammering it.
Yeah, exactly. So like you'll basically have a program called Fuzzer which just like hammers it with like random inputs, and then you basically get the code coverage out of it. What that means is like, hey, like I threw this random input and it activated these code paths. So like if I change this byte here, it activates a new code path. And like what you want is like you want to activate every single code path by just throwing in like structured or unstructured random inputs. So fuzzing, what it does is like you're basically testing every single code path, and then you have your normal program invariants of like, hey, these are the states my program should never be in. So like you could have a state where like all the people that deposited the money, they should always be able to withdraw the money. And so like basically you can hammer the program, check the state before, check the state after, and see if your invariant still holds. You can define a bunch of these invariants. Like my protocol should always be solvent. All the accounts, all the debts here should always be less than the assets in my protocol. You can define a bunch of these core invariants, and then you can just throw random functions, random data, both structured, unstructured, however you want. There's a bunch of ways to go about it. Yeah, and then you check these invariants after that execution to make sure they still stand. If they don't, then there's a bug. And now you have a bunch of these inputs you can go through and see, okay, so like state change A happened to B to C to B to D, and that made the protocol insolvent. This should have not happened. And then you can like slowly track it down back. But like what you're essentially doing is just like, these are the properties that should always hold. And I want to just like test it so hard that like if they don't hold in like any state, I want to know about that state and then fix it. Formal verification takes it one step ahead, where instead of just like throwing random inputs, you can essentially verify all the different states your program can be in by basically turning your program into a SMT and then doing a bunch of math and
On the formal verification, fuzzing and whatnot, I would be very curious to hear like which tools is Zelic kind of using at the moment, or would you say are best in class? And of course, I assume some of them are like in-house and whatnot. But out of the public ones, which one are kind of the most popular, or do you feel are world class in your opinion? For example, like almost for formal verification or sector approver, etc.
Yeah. So for fuzzing, like most of our internal fuzzing, like Yeah, I mean, yeah, most of our internal fuzzing, like especially the ones we do for like our clients, just happen over like either Foundry or the one with Yellow Bits, Echidna. So like both of those are the ones we use internally when we have to fuzz. For formula verification, so Solidity itself has a SMT checker built in, where you can use it to formally verify parts of your contract, like specific functions. The SMT checker, although is very, very bad, it doesn't, like, for example, you can't really have for loops in your program if you are using SMT checker, because it just is like, oh, for loops, I'm gonna break, and it just breaks. So form verification tooling for smart contracts is very bad. SMT checker works if there's something that we really need to formally verify, but we can't really like directly do it with SMT checker. We will just manually take your code and turn it into Z3. So like Z3 is an SMT checking program by Microsoft that is used extensively, that is used extensively in the industry. And so like we just manually translate your program code into Z3 and verify them. We ended up doing that for RapDeet last year, and there's a blog post about it on our thing as well. But like even doing it for RapDeet took us like a week, and that's like a 90-line, very simple contract. So you can see how that time exponentially goes up as you add more and more abstractions and more like complexity to your program. So like it is very hard for formula verification, at least.
I have another question. Sorry if.
Yeah.
that's
Does
okay.
anybody else
Hopefully
have one
nobody else, don't
for now
want to.
before we?
Yeah, I thought of one. So we mentioned Viper and Curve, and the issue with Viper is that it had a very nasty compiler bug where it, if I recall, it claimed that it had reentrancy protection, like some kind of lock or semaphore, if you like, and then it turned out it did not in certain compiler versions. How do you go and find these like obscure compiler bugs that may exist in different versions of, say, Solidity or whatever, or even outside of that? Like how do you look for such a thing?
I mean, like at least in the current state we have in the industry, like you normally find them at a runtime when you're like, oh shit, it's broken. So like Viper we found it during Curve, but like I mean it was also fixed in Viper before that, because like
Wait,
Viper.
you guys found that one?
No, we didn't find it, but like. No, I mean like it was found like at least by the
these
industry.
hackers, yes.
By the industry, as in like, oh shit. So like yeah, I mean basically like how it was actually found by the attackers as well was like Viper made a commit like year and a half ago where they were like reentrancy protection fixed, which if anyone went through the commits of Viper would like eventually end up across this. And how I believe like Viper came across this was probably they ran some unit tests on their like reentrancy protection. And they were like, oh shit, it's not working. But like, yeah, so like at least currently how we find them is just at a runtime. I mean, I remember like there's definitely been quite a few bugs in Solidity as well, from like version 4 to like version 6, where, for example, their memory handling wasn't very good, where they were allocating like too little memory for a bunch of objects and that overrode other objects. Solidity also, yeah. I mean, so now recently we have IR post processors in Solidity, in which case those are supposed to be more optimized, but like they have historically also had a lot of bugs.
These
because
are intermediate representation.
Intermediate representation, like post processor, where like instead of like the compiler just like doing everything for you, you can basically define like different levels of like, hey, I want to process like basically how a compiler works is you have a code, and then you have the machine output from it. But like between that, there's a bunch of steps where the compiler optimizes your code to make it as efficient as possible. And like as you introduce more optimizations, there is a larger chance of you having more bugs, because more optimizations means like you basically could have like mismodeled what the optimization should do or actually does, and that causes a bug. Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Okay, I have a more general question about security and hacking.
Yeah.
So if you, thank you. So from the last year analysis, last year was a very safe year for DeFi. right?
Mhm.
From the amount of hacked money,
Yeah.
I would say. Yeah, they say that the number of hacks was like previous year, 2022, but the amount of hacked money was lower.
Yeah.
And yeah, there is like saying that, yeah, they say that DeFi is safer. So, do you know why? Do you have some ideas about that? And what is your general overview of the
Well-
future of security for DeFi and like hacks?
Well, last year less money was hacked because it was the bear market. There wasn't a lot of money to be getting hacked,
exactly.
right? Like 2022, we had a lot of hacks because people were like experimenting left and right, making new protocols left and right. And as you experiment more, you make more bugs. If there is an experimentation going on, there are no new bugs. And since the bear market, there's not a lot of TVL either. So both of that compounding into each other just makes it like less hacks.
Safer.
Safer.
Yeah, safer. No,
Exactly. Bear markets are safer. guys.
Protection, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. But my question is more about future, like, and your general view for the hacks and the vector of the attack. Like last year, there were a lot of hacks from the private key compromise.
Yeah.
Like they try to some North Korean hackers try to get into some company, and like
Yeah.
steal money from there. And yeah, also we see this crowd auditing platforms like Sherlock, Code Arena. Yeah, this is a new thing, I would say. Yeah, so we see that the security in crypto is changing, right? So is it the same for the hacks? Like, so we have change in security approaches. Do we see some changes in the way of hacks?
Yeah. So if you look at like the hacks that happened, I just said like there's a lot of hacks who were like private key compromises because there were not a lot of protocols to hack. The hackers had to evolve, right? Which means instead of like hacking directly in the protocol, they can hack the people that make the protocols because like. Yeah, since there are not a lot of developments, it have been very hard to find the bugs in the protocol. So like, then they just like basically evolved their practice on how they go about hacking. Instead of hacking the protocol, they can hack the developers as long as it takes the same amount of resources. So like, as we evolve into like a more secure industry in terms of like the contract level hacks, there will obviously be like more challenges where the hacker is just like hack like basically different tiers of things, right?
So I have a easy question, and then another kind of top industry question for you. If you could send flowers to some other audit firms, what would you think is some of the your top 3 or some of the best out there besides Zelig? Zelig is not out there. What would you say, like, for example, I'm getting an audit from Zelig. I'm also getting an audit from somewhere else. What do you think is really like up there, in your opinion?
For that, we also need to know the ecosystem because like there's different audit firms I
Ethereum,
respect
Ethereum, for
in
example.
EVM, Solana.
EVM.
Let's see. EVM.
Just Lightning, just whatever. You don't have to define why they're so good, or because, for example, like I heard so many things about 12 bits, consensus. Like these names that usually use kind of formal verification, runtime verification, for example, too. Do you think what would be the? Yeah.
I personally like runtime verification quite a bit as well, because they approach the problem from a different point of view than us. Because our background is just manual research, their methodology is a lot more mathematical and formal verification based. So like I'm personally a big fan of runtime verification. I think trail of bits as well is very good. So assuming you get them to do like the whole package where they write where they do fuzz testing, invariant testing, and all of that for you as well. Yeah.
And so my other question real quick is, I'm starting to see a lot of audit firms doing kind of apps for security. So
sorry, what do you mean?
Apps, for example, like DDoB has this kind of decompile, monitor, analyze things.
I forgot. DDoB is also one of the better ones. Or actually one of the DDoB has some people I respect quite a bit because DDoB static analysis is top notch. DDoB is up there as well.
Did you see DDoB's nice swag that they were giving away at ETH Denver.
I wasn't at ETH Denver, sadly.
Did
Yeah.
Oliver show you the one that I gave him?
No.
Ooh, okay. I got something to show.
I just
got
want to say a lot
Zach.
of these firms are going to a SaaS model or a type
Mhm.
of subscription model, and I'm curious to see, like, on your end, do you think it's kind of the wrong approach where, like, it all feels very gimmicky to me, where, like, you would give your contract and they will always kind of be monitoring, quote unquote,
Yeah.
exactly, stop it before it happens type of act. Like,
Yeah, those
what's
front
your
runs.
take of it? Yeah, like,
Yeah, I mean, like,
front
so,
running.
like, when we started Zelic, we also had this, like, ambition of, like, hey, like, audits are not scalable. We need to make, like, a product or a platform to, like, scale audits. But, like, as we learned, like, in the first year in, like, they're not scalable, but, like, crypto as an industry, like, crypto security doesn't really have a product, like, we can make that actually, like, actually creates an impact. Like, we thought about it really hard. Like, we actually, like, we prototyped quite a few products internally where we also do monitoring, where we, like, look at your contracts, we do static analysis. But, like, all of that, at least in my opinion right now, is very, very gimmicky and very early stage. Doesn't really do anything. It is very much a distraction. So, like, we had a bunch of these internally. We shut down completely. We were like the only thing that actually makes an impact, at least right now, just because the industry is, like, so early and so immature, that the only thing that we can, that the highest impact thing that we can do is just provide very good security for a lot of projects. Like, as the industry matures, as we have, like, more secure development life cycles where, like, people care about their, like, security at the earliest level, like, where some sort of static analysis would be helpful, that would be great. But, like, we're not there yet, or won't be for at least the foreseeable future, at least in my opinion.
So we're just kind of spinning off that as well. Do you see AI coming into this or helping in any capacity, or are we still a long ways away from that?
We are still very long ways from
Good,
that.
okay.
We tested using LLMs to, like, help us in audits, where we would make, like, LLM assistant, which just, like, helps us in audits with, like answering questions about the code, or just, like, looking at code itself. We tested quite a bit of LLMs, quite a bit of AI stuff. Did not work out. We wrote a blog about this as well on, like, LLMs did not help us with audits. Sorry.
Okay, good to know. Good
Yeah.
to know.
That I was gonna ask a similar thing about someone came to me and was asking about using LLM to choose inputs for fuzzing or, like, direct the fuzzing in some way, and I was like, I think there's something there, but I've never seen it be viable. What do you think of that?
Okay, so, like, generally, how fuzzing works in Web 2 is using LLMs to, like, mutate your input
Yeah.
is very slow, incredibly slow, because, like, normally fuzzing is done at, like, a very, very high execution speed. So, like, normal execution is, like, 10,000 executions a second.
Yeah, and for
More
a long
than
time,
that.
as I understand it, like running.
Yeah,
for
for a
some time.
long time, for a lot of executions per second. So, like, LLMs in that case can be, like, somewhat used to, like, make an initial corpus maybe, and, like, there's some ways you can incorporate it, but, like, it won't really be that impactful unless you, like, redesign the whole
Yeah,
thing.
it was something like choosing the range of inputs and mutating, as you said, and then possibly, like, processing the giant amounts of logs.
Yeah,
you
no,
know,
I mean,
just like pulling out some pith from the logs.
yeah, no, I mean, you can probably combine the on-chain transactions for your contract to make, like, initial corpus. And for smart contracts, it may be viable because, like, smart contracts, you don't need to execute that much because, like EVM is a relatively simple constrained, like, virtual machine. It's like you don't need a lot of executions for smart contracts as well, for, like, most simple smart contracts at least. So, like, there may be something there, but, like, again, like, it is very early stage where, like you're using LLMs to, like, mutate input, but there isn't a lot of input to, like, begin with. What you need is, like, smart mutation, which I don't think LLMs are there yet, when where they can take, like, structured smart input and mutate in a way that would be impactful to your product or to your protocol.
That sounds like a monetizable service. We'll call it.
I mean,
the Zelic Smart Mutant.
I mean, so, like, fuzzing as a service is, like,
Yeah, I've seen this.
yeah,
seen
we
it around.
have tried it as well, and, like, again, it doesn't, so like fuzzing at a large scale also doesn't work, because like when your project is built on like, again, money Legos on like other projects, it's very hard to like just fuzz. And like, yes, you can do it, but like so one of the main parts about like fuzzing smart contracts is like,
You can't fuzz in prod. You'd be paying.
I mean, I'm also not in fuzz and prod, but like one of the main parts about like fuzzing in Web 2, right? Like you can easily detect if something went wrong because your program will crash. Like for example, if you have a C program and something goes wrong, you'll get like a segmentation fault. That means your program misbehaved and like it read out of memory, it wrote out of memory. In smart contracts, it's very hard to define that. What you need is just like your program invariant. So like someone still needs to go in and do the work of like, what are the invariants I don't want like violated? This is my protocol, here's a spec of it. And like, that is the problem. So like you can ask people for their program, but like writing the spec is the main problem there, where you don't have the core invariant. So you can't really fuzz without the spec and the invariants, and no one wants to write the invariants.
Very much with you there
Yeah.
on the gap between spec and implementation.
Yeah. I also
Yeah.
didn't answer your like question properly, Noah, about what's the life cycle of a project should be. So like, yeah, internal fuzzing, internal like testing, internal audit. Right after that, ideally, yeah, I mean, so right after that, you should be looking for, so like after you've done full internal testing, you're like, my protocol, at least from my point of view, is fully secure, fully tested. There's no functionality bugs. Then you go and look for an auditor who has the specific domain expertise in your thing, because like there's a lot of auditors out there. There's just a lot of just auditors out there. A lot of them are good at a lot of different things. So like, you ideally want an auditor who is familiar with the things, like the thing you're working with, and then after that is where.
Can I ask,
Yeah.
what is Zelig specialized in? Like domain expertise? Is it DEX? Is it money markets? Is it like XYZ? You know, what else is? What would you say is your strongest the strongest? Yeah, language or.
Strongest part. I mean, so we have a lot of people who are very good at just like general DeFi stuff. So like again, like DEXs and like basically like non-conventional DeFi. We're coming with like a new mechanism and
Is
design.
it also like economical kind of exploit potentially, like which
Yes.
is not? Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. So like we basically have a few like people who have a very strong like, again, like economical background, who are also very good hackers. So like are like at least for the EVM part, like we are like generally very good at like new mechanisms and like new like non-conventional stuff that has like we have not seen before, because like that is the stuff that requires a lot of like research and like thinking, because like most of the stuff that you've seen before, it is easy to audit because you know what sort of bugs can exist there. But for all the new mechanisms and design, there's a lot of like R&D there. We have to like understand the mechanism to the core and then like find a bug in that.
So for example, like these, I assume you won't see like as many re-entrancy bugs lately compared to back in the days, or you know, for example, flash loans exploits, because there's been so many of them, so now it's less prevalent. Or would you say it's still like something that is happening on the, you know, not daily, but that you see very often in audits?
No, I mean,
do you see kind of these bugs kind of change?
Yeah, I mean, like re-entrancy bugs are not very common these days. So like that is great. You know, everyone has learned re-entrant guard is good, and again, like people are using people are using check effects interactions, which is great.
There's OPE. There's OPE.
Huh?
There's OPE. They're learning.
Yeah, but like so like re-entrancy bugs not very prevalent these days, which is nice. I mean, most of the bugs that we recently see are just like, again, purely logical bugs in the contracts. Like people have understood that like overflows don't happen anymore. There's no integer underflows, overflows. There's like there's much less surface level stuff. So most of the bugs that we see now are just like design level, and like basically like your design to implementation, or just like business logic on like, hey, like you have this logic, but this logic can be abused in this way to cause these problems. So like those are not like the straightforward like, hey, I looked over your code, there's overflow or blah, 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 like all the stupid bugs. They don't exist anymore. A lot of the bugs that we find are just like very, very business logic focused based on like your thing. So like, yeah.
Cool.
But,
Did you have one more? Yeah. We'll
Yeah,
go.
so this is related question. Yeah, so can you recommend your client that, you know, this project, this code is great, but actually the idea is and not so
Mhm.
good. It will not fly, you know.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
The idea is not good for this project.
Yeah.
It will not fly.
Do you care about product PMF?
Yeah. So, like,
No,
nice code, guys, but good luck with it, you know, like.
I mean, yeah, I mean, like, so, like, generally, we try to avoid that. But if a client asks us, we will give them our
Okay.
answer. So, like, generally, like, we're like a very neutral party. We're like, hey, you have this design. We'll make sure like this design works and like
Mhm.
it can't be exploited. But if design by itself is just bad, even though there's no exploit, the design just wouldn't work. We will like tell them, hey, like for example, like your design has these things that you want people to do, but there is no incentives for it. So if you don't have the right incentives, your design is broken. And we sometimes tell them if the client asks for it, but like generally, if they don't want to know about like, hey, your product is shit, we won't tell them their product is shit.
Yeah. And do you recommend to apply for bug bounties? programs?
Yeah, exactly. So like a secure process, like internal like review, full code coverage. Then you get an auditor that has the domain expertise. Ideally, like 2 auditors who have domain expertise, so like they can verify each other's work. So like they can be at the same firm or they can be different firms. Depends on like how much you yeah, basically like it just depends on like the personnel and like how much you want to pay for it. Like ideally 2 different firms will get you 2 similar expertises but like on different parts of the same thing. So that's can also be good. And right after that, you would want a crowdsourced solution where like you probably will not get the domain expertise, but you'll get a lot of eyes. So like a lot of eyes will help you like basically mitigate a lot of like higher level issues, which are not like very domain specific, but just like general, like, hey, like your Oracle is like not like, hey, yeah, I mean, here your Oracle is like not defined properly here, or like your Oracle has a edge case that wouldn't work on like this scenario. So like all of those bugs, I think you will need to crowdsource because like as an auditor, we only have a very set amount of time because like, yeah, I mean, normal audits are like time boxed and time constrained. So like auditors try to prioritize like the core business logic of the protocol, that is like which is the core meat of the protocol. And so like there may be auxiliary bugs that may not be important that may be missed. So like ideally like you would want like a domain expert person to look over your code, 2 of them, even better. Then you want a crowdsource, which means a lot of eyes to look over it. And then before launch, you can also have bug bounties to get like even more eyes. So like bug bounties and like Code Arena are like somewhat similar. So like bug bounties is just like a long running Code Arena where if you have incentives, people look at it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question, and that's like just what I've seen is when interacting with maybe we're getting overtime here, by the way. I just
No.
want to be mindful, but I've seen a lot of teams kind of doing audits and then basically like changing some stuff and then deploying. And I've seen like only one audit firm at the moment trying to kind of prevent that type of things happening, and that's StateMind, where they have like this very strange portal where you can actually like see which deployment is actually live and whatnot. Have you checked that out? Do you know a little bit about them, or do you feel like that should happen more prevalently so we can know that what has been audited is actually what's deployed?
I mean, so like we are working on like a similar thing internally, but it's a hard problem to solve because a lot of times when we audit something, that is pre-deployment. We actually don't know when they're going to deploy it or how are they going to deploy it. And so yeah, I mean, like, so we try to like monitor our customer score. Like every 6 months we go and see if they have new commits they have deployed. But like, it is like a hard problem to solve because like, yeah, I mean, so if the customer made a change after the audit, like they would not want to like tell you, hey, like, can you like put this on your site that we're now like not fully audited. So like, so like incentives for the customer are to like hide the change from you at that point.
Yeah, it's
So
all a bit. Yeah.
It is for the community. So like, yeah, I mean, so we have this like fork tracker that we have like semi-publicly launched that will also have just like audit information about it soon, because like we also have like a reports website where we have the commit hashes that we can like map to the actual what was audited versus the protocol contract code on Etherscan. It's like, so like it can like automatically do it for like about 25% of the protocols, and then the rest you have to like manually go and ask them to like do it.
I have a last question and then I stop. It's an
Yeah.
easy one. It's an easy one.
Yeah.
Could you tell us, like, as far as you know, not necessarily like to again, what was the most expensive audit in the blockchain industry? I assume maybe it's a layer one, maybe it's probably not a protocol, but what would be like the most expensive audit you've heard of? Maybe just a figure, doesn't have to be a proper number.
Mhm.
And is it it's based on time, I assume, and complexity? But yeah, I'm just curious, like, is it the protocol, is it the layer one?
I think the one I recently remember was ZK Sync had a competition that
ZK
was 1.2 million.
Wow.
Not that. Like ZK Sync had a competition that was like 1.2 million, but like general layer one audits, the prices I've heard around like, because like normally when you launch a layer one, you actually don't get the whole layer one audited because that is super expensive. You only get like parts of it that you think are critical enough for execution or like consensus audited. So like for like a general protocol that is like a new layer one, anywhere from like $500,000 to like $1 million
Incredible.
is what it costs. But like, yeah, I mean, most expensive quantity, like ZK Sync was 1.2. There was another one I heard that was also 1.2. But like those are competitions. Competitions are generally more expensive than the audits before them because like competitions have a lot more people. So like competitions would generally be a lot more expensive, which is another thing, right? So like if you want to fix the bug,
does Zilliq do competition, or like just as a, how do you kind of see them? Is this kind of something you think is intellectually challenging for the team, and then you guys will partake, or similar to CTF, by the way, like for example, Paradigm CTF?
Yeah, I mean, so Zalek as a team, so like we as a team doesn't do competition, but we have a lot of people in our like team who do competition individually on their free time. And for CTFs, yeah, so like almost all the people in Zalek come from a CTF background. For people that don't know, think of like math competitions, but hacking, those are CTFs. So we have a lot of people who just play general CTFs in their free time. And like Zalek as a team does play Paradigm. Like not that many, but like we do play Paradigm. But it's also because we write challenges for it. So we're not like allowed to play like all the challenges for Paradigm as well.
And for those that didn't know, CTF is capture the flag.
Yes, capture the flag as well.
I guess it's kind of related to audits, more on security side. The biggest hacks in crypto have almost all been from user compromise, not from code compromise. Well, I guess does Zelic do anything on that front, or do you think there's like just a whole open market on general user security and like SIM swapping and all that like fun?
I mean,
there's just so much to exploit there, and that's where the biggest, Lazarus group has a lot of fun with.
So, like, funnily enough, like, this is not a Web3 only problem. This has been in Web 2 for, like, 2 decades at this point, where most of the compromises, like corporate compromises, happen just with users. Like, normally a hacker would compromise a support agent from your company by making them click something, then they get access to the initial network, and then they, like, after that is when they pivot from it. So like this has been a problem for Web 2 for 2 decades, and there are solutions where they do where for example like most companies just have like very strong security controls on how they like manage like data and user info. For example, like all the employees use company laptops. All the company laptops have secure like all the company laptops run EDR software, which is which stands for endpoint detection response, which is just like we monitor your computer for like suspicious stuff. It doesn't work generally, but like it's good for a CISO as a scapegoat when they eventually get hacked. But like so like we do like Web 2, how they've tackled this is just like we are just going to like isolate what you can do with your work computer. Make sure you use your work computer for only work stuff and don't do it for anything else. And like even if you get hacked, there's also the principle of least privilege that if essentially if the least privileged person in your company gets hacked, which for example would be a support agent, there's not much they should be able to do from just like a support account. So like you essentially you ideally want to give an individual the least amount of privileges they need to do their job and nothing more than that, which can prevent a lot of like private key compromises, because like generally how they happen is like in the same way where like where one of your employees gets their like phone or computer hacked, but now your employee has personal access to the server where you store the keys. Now that is a problem. So like ideally for the Ronin hack, for example, if someone got hacked, they should not have access to the server or the RPC that stored the private keys, because like that should have been like off limits for everyone except like maybe one DevOps person. And like generally like so generally the higher you're up in a company, the more security like knowledgeable you are, especially for example, if you're like a DevOps person managing like the private key infrastructure, you know how to like not get hacked, but like a normal like BD person may not, for example. So like that person should not have access to like a server that stores your private keys.
Sorry, I just want to add to this one. I completely agree that this is more like a Web 2 problem. Yeah, we have everywhere in the bank, and there is a solution for crypto area. There is a standard, CCSS, cryptocurrency security standard, and they focused specifically on private key management inside the companies. So they say if you want to be secure as a company, you can implement some other controls, like from ISO 27001, NIST cybersecurity framework, all this stuff about networks, computers, so on. But everything related to crypto, like creating your private key, sharing, backups for your private key, least privilege for private keys, exactly. So like North Korea hackers, they can access to you, to get access to your company, but they cannot do they can do nothing, right? So that's another solution, and I think it's like Web3 problem. There is Web3 solution, but it's not a DeFi solution. It's not.
I mean it's almost like it's a standard, but like standard is not a solution per se, right? Like
yeah, it's just a proposed. Yes.
Like I mean also in Web 2 we have all of these ISO standards, and like like everyone like when they want to be like SOC compliant, they implement the ISO standard on like 1/10 of their company, and they say, oh, we are SOC compliant, but only on this sub entity. It's like a very stupid thing on Web 2 where they're like, hey, we are like SOC 5 compliant. How are we SOC 5 compliant? Oh, we have this ESSS, we have this subsidiary which you will contract with. That is SOC 3 compliant, but we are actually not. Yeah. It's like a very big meme on like how they get around it, because like companies just don't want to like go through it.
One thing, by the way, like that I haven't seen a lot of audit company offer is pen testing of the actual kind of company, and I think Auburn was one of the procedure, whatever, all these things, and Auburn is one of the few that is doing it. I don't know how good Auburn is for smart contract per se, but they do pen testing, they are like operational security per se, and I think that's something very important, like you mentioned.
This is sometimes referred to as red teaming as well, but you need to coordinate with who you're doing this with, because otherwise you look like attacker and there's legal trouble.
I mean like both like pen testing and red teaming are like obviously important, but again, like I think a lot of crypto companies would just be like they're not at the stage where they need pen testing, because they're like already so insecure that like they need to like fix their smart contracts first before they care about their offchain infrastructure. No, I mean like at Zalik we also offer like a lot of like offchain infrastructure service as well, but like that comes after like your audit. So if we have done your audit, we think you're good, all right, like we can look at your rest of infrastructure as well, but like more critical things are first. Like if your smart contract gets hacked, that is done. If your offchain infrastructure get hacked, you may not even lose all the money. You may not even lose money. Like someone will get access to data, that's fine. That's better than losing money.
Question a bit more on your trajectory and just the audit space in general. Like it is a bit newer in general, like cybersecurity at all getting recognized as a field. It used to be just like frowned upon almost.
Hacking?
Yeah, straight up. And then how have you do you feel like Web3 in general is more responsive to people reporting bugs? I mean, you gave the examples of just like FUD and getting muted on servers, but like it's pretty similar in Web 2 as well. I'd say like you can't really now you can report bugs, but even if you do, you get a shirt or something.
Yeah, yes. So
Like-
like I used to do a lot of bug bounties before. I have a whole box of shirts from like 25 different governments and like basically every like big tech company, because like I mean I used to do bug bounties back in like 2015, 2016. And like at that point bug bounties were like a very new thing. Now, a lot of companies had implemented bug bounties at that point, which meant like yeah, so like you could selectively target specific companies about bug bounties, but the bounties would be super low and they were just all super new that there weren't a lot of targets. But like now bug bounties have, at least in Web 2, have matured a lot more, which means like there's a lot more companies that are open to paying bounties. But again, like there's still quite a few companies who are just not receptive to like bugs because they're like, we are very secure, we don't care, we are unhackable because, you know, whatever reason. But like, yeah, I mean, like as your point in Web 3, like companies during bull market and like BSC don't care about bugs. But like in 2023 in bear market, they all care about bugs because like all the people that are left are people that actually care. So if they're left and they're building to 2023, they will care about it. So like, I think in the end, I think it just comes down to like how much that entity cares, and like we just need to make sure the people that are in crypto are the ones that care about crypto and are not here to just like purely extract value out of it.
Thanks. Do you think that we need more hackers, more hacks actually?
More hacks or more hackers?
Yeah, let me explain. So there is one thing in cybersecurity like recovery and response, incident response.
Yeah.
In crypto, we have crypto investigations. So you can actually track crypto. You can ask KYC from exchanges, of course mixers. But I mean, in general, if the hackers is not very smart in money laundering,
Yeah, you can catch them.
you can catch them. You don't need even a police or somebody. You can just knock on their door. Somebody can do it because paying for their life is just a little bit comparing to the amount of money they steal.
Yeah.
And then, you know, these guys are scared because they could be a good hackers, but they may be not good in
Money
spending their
laundering.
life, you know, in like worrying about something that can happen. So in this case, I think we have seen this increase in crowdsource auditing platforms and bug bounties. Smart guys go there and they try to find some bugs and do not steal. Yeah. That's my question. Do we need more guys who try actually to hack?
Okay. So the question: do we need more like people or like more white hat hackers that do bug bounties?
No, I think we have enough.
We have enough. Okay.
Yeah, we don't have guys from, once again, not from Russia, not from North Korea, from developed countries.
Yeah.
They are brave enough to hack.
Okay.
You see,
No.
black hackers.
Okay, so do we need like more bad hackers in the industry? Is what you're saying?
Yeah, I think that's yeah. I think no. I think we have a lack of bad guys.
I don't think
Guys afraid to be catched. You know, they hack something. Just maybe because they're lucky, they found the bug, and then they hack. But after that, they can regret about that because they have money, but they don't feel very good after that. That's why they skip from hacking to, once again, auditing and bug bounty.
Is it a good thing? Is that?
It's a good thing for the industry.
Yeah.
But, I
Are
mean,
you saying we need more jokers
Yeah.
that just want to grief?
It's like.
So you want to see the world burn a little bit more? Is
No,
what you're
not
saying.
No,
like-
but
I
like,
mean-
but like
Yeah,
no,
if
no,
it,
but
if
I mean,
it survives. if
okay,
it
but like,
survives-
how would that like help the industry?
So
if it survives, it'll be stronger.
yeah, exactly. If there's more hackers, if there's
I mean,
better
honestly, if we have like a
people,
DAO hack again and we fork the chain, I
Yeah.
don't think we're surviving. I'm sorry.
I have just one comment. Just comment on this, by the way. Like, someone told me once, that Solidity developers or contract writers are actually not very competent at writing it,
Yes.
and that actually the best Solidity developers are all auditing the contract, and that's why we have so many that's why the industry is not as advanced or pushing the boundaries over there, because all the best talent is actually auditing per se. But again, like, I don't want to say anything about this. I do know for a fact that one of the most talented Solidity engineer I know was actually at Consensus, and she transitioned to Uniswap, and she's been killing it over there. And I think the pipeline of auditor to smart contract developer is not prevalent enough, and that would make things way better for the industry. But again,
That's just asking when are you going to build a protocol?
Yes, Zalik Chain Zalik.
Nice. 2?
Layer 3s. I don't believe in layer 2s no more.
L2 with Bitcoin consensus and security.
Nice.
AI
Okay.
imitators.
All right. I'm going to ask one last question here, and it's kind of more of
Mhm.
a thing here for everybody. So we've talked a lot about blockchain security. We've talked a lot about, all the crypto aspects inside of it. Let's bring it back to everyday users. So let's talk a little bit, maybe, one part of it being the mobile side, because that's where everybody's using their mobile devices these days. And then, let's talk about PC, Mac, whatever, your kind of laptop, desktop type situation. So over on let's say whether you're an iPhone or an Android user, because I don't think anybody uses a BlackBerry anymore. If you are, it's good luck. Or a Windows phone, I guess that's not an Android, is it? That's a separate
Windows.
but that's Android. That's Android, so it's okay. But anyway, I guess where I'm going with this is between Android and iPhone. Any major tips or tricks or things that people should be watching out, or which one's more secure from your opinion or from your standpoint? And then same thing with, I guess, Mac and Windows type thing.
I mean, like, ideally, you should not have your wallet on your phone.
Correct.
If you do have it on a phone, so like, I know Solana phone has the hardware secure element, which is the HSM, which can store private keys very well. So like, basically, even if someone gets access to your phone, they will not be able to extract the keys out. So like, if you are like having it on a phone, like, make sure you use a device that is like meant for private key storage. So like, normal iPhones, as of now, they have a hardware security module that can store private keys, but it doesn't support the signing that we need for EVM or Solana.
And that's with like the enclaves or something.
Yeah,
Is
that's
that,
what the enclave. Yeah, so like when I say HSM, I just mean the secure enclave. It's a different word for like secure enclave. It's the hardware security module. So like, iPhones can store keys, but like, if you are storing it, just make sure it's your hot wallet with not a lot of money, because like, although like it is very hard for someone to like hack your phone remotely, if they get physical access to your phone, they can do a lot of things with it. And ideally, you want to prevent that. Same with Android phones. So like, Google Pixel has the Titan Secure Enclave, which can also store private keys. I am not 100% sure if you can use it to like sign transactions though. But like, ideal, so like, again, the point is that if you're storing your like private key on a phone, make sure that it is a device that is well equipped to store private keys. So setup that I personally use for like my security is like, I just have a normal multi-sig, and I just have like it's a 3x4. One of the keys is in my phone, one of the keys is in my computer, one of the keys is in my hardware wallet, and one of the keys is with my like parents. So like, all of that to say that like, basically, if I lose like a single device, that doesn't really do anything for me. So like, for your cold wallet, you ideally just want like an on-chain solution where you also have key recovery, that like, if you lose like one of your devices, that doesn't like affect your like money that you've stored on chain, because I assume a lot of people store money on chain, and you don't want to just lose access to it because you dropped your phone in the water. For Mac versus Windows, again, if you are storing it directly on a computer, Both are okay. Mac is a bit better because of its default security controls. Windows, it is easier to like run a bad application and give it access to your whole computer. Whereas for Mac, it'll make you click like 3 times before it lets you do that. So that is the defense we have. But again, all of those keys, for example, the keys in your MetaMask, they can be extracted by anyone. If you, like, for example, if you click a random application, you open up a random like PDF, they can get your MetaMask keys. So like MetaMask, again, only for hot wallets.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah. And so like ideally hardware wallet, which you don't ever connect to a computer, like a Keystone,
hey.
or like essentially hardware wallet that is like air gapped, or you can honestly even use a laptop that's kind of air gapped.
Well, that was like the old school way of doing it. That's what the old Bitcoiners did.
Yeah.
They were, taking out their USB-F with the signed message on and then going
Yeah.
over to the other laptop.
That's what I did as well back in like 14.
What about the
Yep.
Ledger stacks that just started shipping?
Oh, I
Mhm.
need to get one. I don't know enough about it yet, but I have to see it and play with it. I should have been on it and actually got one of the demos or something earlier, but anyway.
But like, I mean, also like, also one thing I noticed, like, there's a lot of advice that like is given that like, don't click links.
Yeah.
It is like
That's-
no, like so like, I think that advice is like overgiven. Like clicking links, almost all the cases is fine. Just don't sign messages from the click links.
Yeah.
Well, so I got my Twitter compromised by clicking a link.
Just clicking a link.
Just clicking a link. Yeah, it was very surprising because it didn't get full compromised. It gave third-party access to post on my behalf, but it didn't actually get access to my account. So
Did you give it like permissions to?
No.
That sounds like a Twitter bug. They should report that.
Yeah, I reported. So
Yeah.
it's a Twitter bug where like I had it was a semi-real Calendly link that gave them access as a third-party app to Calendly, which wasn't a real Calendly, and then
Oh,
they
I
could
see.
post through like that Calendly link. But I never like authorized stuff. It was just like opening a link and like booking a call. But so you're
Mhm.
not actually like authorizing on Twitter that you're doing it.
Oh, I see. I see. So like when you booked a call, it probably like did some sort of click jacking to make it click the allow button like underneath it as a
Maybe.
yeah. So like
Something like
I
that.
mean, so like what I'm saying is like you can open a link, like ideally not on the same profile as your MetaMask. So like in Google Chrome, you can have different profiles.
Yeah.
So like if you are using MetaMask, put it on a different profile. Do not ever browse internet on that profile. Only use it to like browse your like DeFi protocols and like farm money. Just don't do anything else with it. But like clicking a link in most cases, unless a government wants to hack you, is fine. But if a government wants to hack you, like there's nothing you can do. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Scale issue at that point.
Well, I think that's a great point with the profiles as well.
Yeah.
If everybody's familiar with that, like you can have, I don't know, infinite amount of
Yeah.
profiles within your browser setting, especially if you're using a Chromium one. Have those 2, 3, 4, have as many as you need. But like, yeah, for ones that you're using your social apps, you're connecting, talking to people, whatever it is, like on Twitter or X, or just basic browsing or researching. You're using that profile for that kind of stuff. And then when you're going to do the DeFi degen, whatever it is, you're in that one, and that's all you do. You're not going to Twitter with it. You're not going to wherever. And that way you can really keep things safe and secure.
Yeah. There's also a funny thing as well, where if you use a non-standard browser, it's harder for you to get hacked, just because like most exploits for
yeah.
browsers are made for Google Chrome. So like about a year ago, there was this North Korean hacker who was targeting like vulnerability researchers who used to write exploits for Google Chrome. And how they did that was like they would message them on Twitter and be like, "Hey, I am also a security researcher. I wrote this blog post. Can you double check it?" And that blog post link had like a 0-day bug in Chrome that would exploit your Chrome and then steal all your exploits that you wrote for Chrome. But there's a funny way to go around it where so that North Korean person sent it to like basically a lot of security researchers. It got around. They're like, "Oh yeah, it's North Korean person." But a lot of people just like did not get hacked because they were like, "Yeah, I use Firefox." Because a lot of security people for some reason use Firefox, one because it's non-standard and because like general exploits don't work on it, and because they have some like ideological thing about Firefox as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like using a non-standard browser can like basically prevent you from getting hacked from like most of the very high quality exploits as well.
Yeah, and that's,
So like using a non-standard browser can like basically prevent you from getting hacked from like most of the very high quality exploits as well. So like using a non-standard browser can like basically prevent you from getting hacked from like most of the very high quality exploits as well.
Yeah.
Okay, good to know.
Back office is all Opera. It's all on Opera, so we're safe.
Yeah.
Nice.
I just wanted to underscore what you were saying before about clicking is not the issue. Signing messages is.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people. It's still kind of a common myth that like, oh, don't connect your wallet. Even connecting, besides a privacy issue, is not really how you get
Yeah.
pwned. It's signing a message, especially a message that you cannot read.
Yeah. And this is where I'm going to hammer it through again, make sure people are using Wallet Guard, using Pocket Universe, using those two things, running with those. That way it's like, hey, you're about to sign a message. It's going to drain your wallet. Are you into that?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think so. Oh, wait, it's going to go to Pocket Universe now. It says, hey, maybe you're going to lose everything. Are you still okay with this? Oh, maybe not actually. Oh, let's stop that. Or again, Rabby, other than like MetaMask, where I think MetaMask is starting to get a little better, but Rabby, you can see that whole simulation stuff. We need more and more of this where it's like, this just feels, why am I sending all of my X assets, or why am I sending that? Like, that's not what I'm intending to do.
Why am I doing an approval on 1 inch to like sell everything at 1 cent?
Yeah. Like, anyway,
The only well, it's good to have 3 because like just in case these extensions get taken over.
Yep.
You could also end up on not the Google Chrome store for the extension and get something malicious like that.
Mhm.
But I think that many of them, even though it's slow, is probably hedging your bet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I do.
They also have to just update the signatures and make sure they're able to interpret and output human readable effects,
Right.
which
Yeah.
they seem to be kind of slow at the moment.
Yeah, but again, like easiest advice to follow is like generally use a hardware wallet.
Yes.
It will probably
Save
solve
you-
most of your problems,
Yeah.
unless again government wants to hack you.
Yeah, then your skill issue, as you said.
Yeah, then it's GG for you.
Alrighty. Okay. I think that's been great. We should probably wrap it. Yeah, it's been extremely extensive. So, yeah, round of applause. Thank you, Jazzy. All right. We've got one other person here. Do you want to come up and chat for a bit, Suki, or how are you feeling? You want to do it? All right. Okay. We're going to have another. Yeah, we're going to have a small little intermission, and then as we switch up, and then we'll get into it. Okay. Just just come have a sit. Have a sit. We'll get started here. Maybe. Do you have a Twitter profile?
Yes.
Do you want your Twitter profile on there?
Sure.
Yes. Okay. We're gonna switch it up. All right. Okay. What is your Twitter? Oops.
It's Trader Girl.
Say that one more time.
It's Trader Girl.
Trader GIRLSUKI.
Surprised you can spell girl. Good job.
GIRL. Nailed it.
Now
Oh, wow. All right. Okay. There we go. All right. So, Suki, what's going on? Where you came in from the eastern part of the continent, and what's going on over there? What are you up to? What are you working on?
Yeah. Hi everyone. My name is Suki. I've been in crypto for the past 5 years. I started my career at Pantera Capital as a quantitative researcher working on the hedge fund side. Built a lot of high frequency trading algorithms and trading on different various of exchanges. And before that, I was in school at Berkeley, did Master of Financial Engineering. And yeah, being in the space and trading and building startups. And last year, I joined Electric Capital as a data scientist, working a lot on the tokenomics side of things. I recently going to being working on my startup, so probably going to leave Electric soon. I hate to break
You
the
shouldn't have
news.
said that here. It's live. People are knowing. You're breaking news here.
I mean, Web3. I think there are a lot more news catching things than anyone leaving a company, right? Ryan going convicted, Trump getting convicted. So I'm not exactly breaking the news here. So
Yeah, perfect. Okay.
um,
So I guess one of the things that you're kind of interested in working around here, obviously a lot of people saw the whole pump.fun thing happen, and that's maybe we could talk a bit about like the mechanics and what's going on there, and then maybe lead into kind of some of the ideas that you've got around it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I think back to your first question about New York City.
Sure.
So I used to live in SF for about 4 years and in New York for about 1 year. It's very different in terms of the crypto scene. I think in San Francisco we have a lot of VCs who are very infrastructure heavy, and we have a lot of startups that's also very infrastructure heavy. I would say there's Solana, there's Phantom, Magic Eden, Alchemy, and 0x, and some of the DeFi companies there. And in New York, I think it's a lot more institutional. There's definitely a lot more investors in New York who are very focused on the financial side of things. So they think of crypto as this new asset class. There are a lot of hedge funds out there trading crypto, and also think of cryptocurrencies as an asset class versus how builders think of crypto as a decentralized technology for various of things that we build smart contract and enjoy ourselves. So yeah, like I think New York has great crypto environment and the whole scene. I'm enjoying my time there. And to your second question about Pump.Fun, so I had a similar idea about 8 months ago when I saw Friend was basically tokenizing people's Twitter profiles. And I started building crypto products about a year ago, and I built a various amount of trading platforms and trading products. And each iteration, I just got closer to the core of crypto as a technology and as a new emerging sector, where I think there are two things unique about cryptocurrencies and blockchain that traditional tech and traditional finance cannot do. The first unique quality about crypto is that it's a great way to tokenize and financialize intangible values. And what do I mean by that? It's anyone can launch any tokens that's ERC20 or NFT collections permissionlessly. Whether or not that goes anywhere, like nobody knows. Most of them don't, right? And then people say, oh, it's a scam, but you should understand the risk when you're aping into these kind of long tail tokens, right? Where they haven't established an existing community just yet. So basically, I think with traditional finance, right, to launch a stock or to get listed on like IPO, you need to build a massive company that generates tons of millions of revenue, and you get all the compliance checks, and then you get listed on like NASDAQ and New York Stock Exchange. But crypto is the only place where you get a group of friends and you can launch a token and like meme with the community, and you airdrop to a bunch of people. You get them rich that way, and everybody loves you. And even when you stop working on whatever this token is, the community lives on, and that itself is such a great asset. So I think we've seen different products trying to go down that route, right? NFT says that they tokenize culture, tokenize art, and Frontech basically tokenize, your popularity on Twitter. Why is that worth anything? Because, when you have a big following on Twitter, you have people's attention, right? You already have a community behind you that's to some extent tokenizing people's attention and tokenizing your influence that way. And that's kind of why Frontech got really big. There are other ways that they did well. And back in the days in 2021, we invested in this company called Diesel. That their first product was BitCloud, which is basically letting celebrity coins. Many of us still have that vivid memory. They were one of the first to use a bonding curve. There were a lot of learnings that I took from Nader building his first social thing. And I've also been through the ICO days, IDO days, and the IEO days. There's so many different ways to launch tokens. And the least favorable way, in my opinion, is using the benchmark for to be Binance, using Binance as a benchmark for like what token is worth something. Like, fuck that shit. Like, centralized. Sorry, excuse me. Like, why should we, as a decentralized finance and decentralized industry, use a centralized platform as the rule for what token is worth, whatever market cap that they say you're worth? And that to me is ridiculous. But we do live in a world where the biggest volume are all on centralized exchanges. I used to trade exclusively on centralized exchanges, including Binance, including FTX, including RIP there, including like OKX and centralized prime brokers, where even today most of the institutions still use those services, because otherwise there's not really any way that they can access the most liquidity through a compliant way. We're going very far down the first route of crypto is about tokenizing intangible values. I think the second quality that crypto has that other industries don't have is all the data is transparent and on-chain. And most people, even like us in the industry included, don't realize how powerful that is to have access to every single wallet's data. And there's paramount, there's off-limit things you can do with that power. Either that being reputation, either that being social, or being tracing wallets or finding trading signals. So there's so many things we can do that's not even not really possible to imagine that we can do that in Web 2, where Twitter have their closed API that they can charge however amount they want. And every single Web 2 company all have closed source APIs and data sources. Right. And for Web3, all the data is there for people to grab. And I think combining the first and second, combining the tokenizing values and also combining the transparency of data, we can come up with a really, really powerful DeFi product that's 10 times, if not 100 times better than centralized exchanges. And I think if we don't have a product that's 10 times better than Binance, why should people use us, right? Why should people use DeFi versus, they can easily on and off ramp to Coinbase and to Binance, and they would just use that. Why should they, use the decentralized exchange to begin with?
Yeah, and I'll just say, I totally agree with you because, especially new people coming in and seeing these sorts of things. But the main reason, I think, for most people, or I guess for me anyhow, is just PTSD. Thankfully, I've only been wrecked by 4, and I've talked about this numerous times with everybody in this individual here, or in this space here. But 4 centralized exchanges. So now it's an on and off ramp. I don't even think about them as an exchange anymore. I just think about it on ramp, off ramp. That's it. Everything else is happening on chain because we have the power to do it. So but you're right. There is a lot of friction with it. There's, it's not the user experience that people can have, the clicking and the being able to just things happen. And we're able to wipe together dust. We can batch things together because it's all off chain. We don't have to do the accounting that's necessary on chain. But anyways, we do need to get there, and perhaps maybe you can go further into where you were headed with this about how the user experience can be better, or I don't know, wherever you were headed with this.
Yeah, I had this idea to build Lamal.fun throughout my whole journey in crypto as a trader, as a builder, as a user, and as someone who just always get rocked on different meme coins and long tail tokens. There are a few problems I would really want to solve with my life. First is a lot of cryptocurrencies are scams, quote unquote, or people say it's scams. And then second is a lot of long tail tokens don't actually have a ton of fundamental value. And it's basically a PvP game of who has information, and insiders get to dump on the outsiders who don't have enough information there. So there's a big information asymmetry, and that plays into this game theory of users and traders trying to get early alpha or thinking that they have early alpha when they ape into something. And I think another thing I would love to solve is giving people equal access and giving people the toolkit so that they can launch truly fair tokens within their communities and making it customizable for people to utilize that tool to benefit their communities and manage their communities that way. I think how a lot of these, for example, like Pump.Fun, it's basically kind of this PvP. I think of it more like it's more like a crypto game where they pitch themselves as a launch pad where, they use a bonding curve that people collect funds on the bonding curve. And then once, there's enough funds being raised, you launch on a Radium pool, which is the equivalent of Uniswap on Solana. And then people get to trade that token pair on Radium, right? There's many problems with this model. First, with the bonding curve, if it's 10 people, 20 people raising or buying the market on the bonding curve, which solves the cold start liquidity problem, with long tail tokens, because otherwise we don't really have a reasonable way to price these tokens when there's no liquidity on them, right? So I think bonding curve is a really unique mechanism that solves that. And then after the bonding curve, the AMM also makes a lot of sense because either with a central limit order book AMM or with any fancy model of like the AMM like Uniswap v3 or even like Uniswap v4, it's not really a good fit for meme coins. It's not really a good fit for tokens that majority of people don't really understand the how to LP for these things. So I think making it easy is definitely the way to go. But back to the problem with Pump.Fun is that it becomes a PvP game for these early holders or traders of the token. Because if you get in at $1 and the 10th person get in at $10, you can effectively dump on the 10th person and you 10x your return. And that's what people have been doing, right? Like in a sense that you're having this transparency of like who's buying this market, but on the other sense, most tokens are not gonna get launched even onto the Radium pool because you can't coordinate these initial liquidity people to have a united goal.
I have a question. Sorry to interrupt. So we spoke about Pump.Fun, and I'm just curious I don't know what's the future of Pump.Fun and whatnot in these games, but if we assume that this is a money game, I would be curious to see like other mechanism for these pools. For example, like if we assume that, someone can only buy and sell on a bonding curve, what if, I don't know, like as a random bonus, there could be 6th or 10th person winning potentially like a percentage of all the trading fee that happened in this bonding curve? Or what if some of these fees were put back in this pool, so this way it can always grow per se? Like I feel right now we have a very simplistic approach, which is just buy sell in a pool, and there's no kind of additional functionality that could make this a little bit crazier. Or maybe it could be timed, maybe that's just all the trades need to happen in a certain phase. So this way, like kind of assuming it's a game, like we're just to uncover other dynamics or mechanism. I feel that could be very cool for Lamau, that fun.
Yeah, definitely. We thought about those two. So on the first is the creator of the token get to charge a fee for people trading it, whether they want to incentivize high frequency traders that they can charge 0 fees that everybody can get in and out of position without any tax, or if they really want to go aggressive like Friendtag, they charge like 10% fees, which is ridiculous. But the benefit of that is that people hold for longer because every time they sell, they're like, damn, I'm paying 10% for like this stupid trade that I do. Like that's ridiculous. So incentivize people to hold for longer. In the same time, the fees should go to the token holders and should go to people who are owning like a piece of the pie, right? I think that quickly fall into the category of like what is the security, given that I live in the United States. Like any tokens that give out effectively dividends of the revenue that it's making, it's kind of a security. But I think outside of that, it totally makes sense. This way people would hold for longer because I'm actually getting something by holding these tokens. And the second thing mechanism was that you talk about with the time boxing the market, totally makes sense. It's basically like an auction where you can say, oh, this market will exist or this token will exist for 2 days. If we collect enough liquidity, it will get launched onto the redeem pool. And if we don't collect enough liquidity, the money will go back to the people that bought the token. I think there's one problem with that, which is one, it's basically like a put option where people can have the option to sell before, as the time get closer and closer to the 2 days, right? Say that the token exists for 2 days, and then as it approaches, like the price will definitely like already drop to zero because we're time boxing that whether or not like this is happening. If it's happening, then it will happen like way faster than that. And if it will not, like the price will just like drop like way earlier than the 2 days that we set initially. So I think it's worth thinking about how these type of auctions work. Even like with auctions, right? Like the most common one that people are familiar with is like Dutch auction. And Hyperliquid was doing this thing where they, launched like try to launch meme coins and people can like do like Dutch auction for it. There's a lot of different other auction types, like all pay auction, like second. It's just like if you Google, all like different types of auctions, you will see like probably like 100 in I studied that in like game theory or in college or stuff like that. But I think at the end of the day, none of these auctions are actually scalable. It's kind of a game that you can play once a week. But it's not something that will be huge in the sense that it's economically not positive. It's not positive EV. It's not even a zero-sum game for most people that people will play it once for fun. But would they play like a second time or every day? I don't think so. So I think when I think about something that I want to build something that people can use every day. I want to build something that's economically beneficial for people living in Africa, living in Asia. They don't need to be a genius to game the system. And right now, everybody on like Palm just gets rugged and gets dumped on. And I really want to create a world where there is more transparency into the system. It's also just giving the power back to the users of the information that we know as like prosumers and pro traders back to people who are not professional traders. Continue.
I have a question. So Palm.Fun has been seeing a lot of velocity with kind of user base on Solana, and I think they also deployed on Blast. Do you have any kind of insight into why this hasn't been kind of as popular on EVM per se, or layer 2s, and potentially like, is it something you consider kind of bringing to EVM? Like with Lamau, do you target kind of EVM first, or you try to cannibalize the Solana community, which is more, I would say, sensible to meme coins or these type of money game? Is it something like, how do you approach kind of the go-to-market solution for that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, did you want... first of all, I picked Solana and I stand by my decision there. After being in crypto for like so many years, I used to be a ETH maxi. I used to be, pro for all these like more layer 2s. And I was also like really excited when, during, I don't know if people here remember, during 2021, there were a lot of alternative layer 1s popping up. I was so excited, like Near, Solana, Polygon is more of a side chain, but all these different chains popping up to compete to some extent with Ethereum. And each of them had a thesis, whether that being technological or speed or execution, right? Or with your sharding mechanism, some kind of a twist on your cryptography, Aptos and Sui on their programming language, and like, you know, different in like a number of ways, right? And this cycle we've seen all these like layer twos, and like me myself, like I was Ethereum, like I said, ETH maxi, but why did I go with Solana? I think if you have used Solana, you will not go back to layer twos. Like that was my experience. As a normal user, I don't want to do bridging, right? I don't want to bridge my ETH here and there, and I don't even want to use Privy to send my Ethereum from the testnet or from, you know, Blast to my app wallet. I just know that when I send Ethereum to some specific app wallet, that ETH is gone. Like I just like lost track of all the ETH spread out on different chains and on different applications. I think bridging is a big kind of blocker for users. Like people here are very, you know, crypto native and have been crypto for a long time. So we are very comfortable custodying our own keys, custodying our own assets on different chains. I think with Solana, it's also a different culture. Like Solana has this culture where if you're on Solana in the first place, you care about speed, and you don't care as much about like Ethereum. Like you're also like later to the game to some extent. Like a lot of people with a ton of ETH, they've been in the space for a long time, and there's less of a speculative need for those people if you have like a few $1 million or even just like a few $100K in US dollar on chain. Whereas if you're late to the game, Solana is cheap, right? There's a lot of like newer kind of, it has very heavy like meme coin and also this trading community that with Ethereum, I think you're filtering for like a slightly different crowd. With layer twos, yes, Base and Blast and a lot of up and coming layer twos.
I just want to say, like, from what you're saying, like, I think the Ethereum community didn't take chain abstraction seriously enough on the wallet side, like kind of the bridging and whatnot, and I think that's really true. On the other side, I would like to, some of the vibes that I'm seeing on Solana with Pump.fun and whatnot really reminds me of the ICO era and the exuberance, and maybe this is what is happening right now on Solana, and that's why, you know, like everyone is getting hilariously rich and having fun and whatnot. But yeah, it's just like good thoughts, and I do think it's probably gonna keep going, and that's a very good decision for Lamau per se. So yeah.
I also think, Solana is currently capturing a lot of that community. Although I think one theme in crypto that never changes, people looking for early alpha and people trying to find like new chains and be early on something. So I wouldn't be surprised in the future if there's other chains that's popping up. We're very adaptable and agile. I couldn't care less about like what chains we build on, but it's like if you're building something for the users, you should just be where the users are at.
Yeah. Have you got one? None.
Conversation derailed a different way.
Okay. Oh, good.
It's okay.
Come on, come on. Get it in.
Yeah, kind of just curious on AMMs aren't efficient at all. But yeah, we just haven't. Dex screener, the first time Dex, what? Yeah. Well, like, Dex screener hadn't added an order book until recently, ever. I'm trying not to shill, but like, moving forward, do you think that it's more realistic to see that transition for degens? Like, in end of the day, as you mentioned, most trading still happens on Binance, which is still an order book to this day. Do you think that we would see that type of stuff on chain as sophisticated traders move on chain and start trading these long tail assets?
That's an awesome question. Because I've done market making for both of these tokens on centralized exchanges, right? Being on both sides of the order book, making the liquidity for these protocols, as well as for on the DEXs. It's providing liquidity in LP pools. I agree that AMMs are not the most efficient way for price discovery, but when you get to the low liquidity token pairs, there's not really, I don't think order book makes sense, because you would, first of all, you would effectively need, like, either someone can build this amazing intent protocol that takes both sides of the order and like not caring about time, not caring about slippage, not caring about when their trades get executed, because with AMM and order book more meaning on centralized exchanges, right? It actually requires a lot of liquidity for any order book to exist in the first place. And sure, you can have an order book that for long tail tokens that's very like just sparse in terms of the orders, and like none of the orders get executed unless people are very okay with high slippage, with like putting my order up and not getting executed for like a day or something. But the answer to that is both bonding curves and AMMs are very good pricing mechanisms for the type of markets where you don't need a counterparty. For order book to exist, you constantly need to have counterparties that price things at the range that you're okay with, and for that execution to even happen in the first place. So I think the only kind of way that I see forward that someone creates this new mechanism for the long tail assets pricing is some kind of a combination between the bonding curve AMM as well as just how like liquidity are provided in general. I think it's more about providing the liquidity than about price discovery, because when you don't have liquidity, then I think only like putting something on the curve makes sense, because you don't need someone to sell for you to have a price. And yeah, I've been waiting for the past, as long as Uniswap existed, I've been waiting for like 4 or 5 years to see if we can have a better and new mechanism for a DEX. I haven't seen that yet. Hopefully Lamau, like I can create that. And when that day comes, I'll make sure to publish the white paper. And I really want this to be a public good, and everybody gets to have a share of that. I think this will be beneficial for like everyone in DeFi. And if you have interesting ideas around this topic, please feel free to DM me. Always happy to brainstorm ideas around there.
Yeah, we can talk after.
Sounds good. All right. Anybody else for questions, comments, concerns, anything? I know we've been here for a while. I appreciate everybody hanging in here. It's been a deep one. So, any final comments, thoughts, anything from you, Suki?
I think this cycle, I don't know if you guys agree to these far. I think I haven't seen like a ton of technological development or like new things coming out this cycle.
What about modularity or restaking?
Restaking is a buzzword.
Ooh, nice. Shots fired.
My views are all my own. It doesn't represent anybody. And just my personal thoughts. It's not financial advice. It's not legal advice. Please just take it not seriously.
Yeah. Educational and entertainment purposes only.
Exactly.
That's what this whole thing is about. Yes.
Exactly. No, I mean, I think people like to create new words in crypto. Last year we've seen intent and also like restaking, all these like new words. And especially there are some VC firms out there especially really good at creating new words, spinning out narratives when there's no new technology being created in crypto. And they're meant to, I think different, if you think about it as a game theory, different players, they have different motives, and they also have different incentives to play this game. And at the end of the day, VCs have their LPs, their investors, that they would need to tell the story and keep them happy. And the founders, a lot of times they have either users or community or their investors. And for users or traders, like they're here to either make money or to participate in this new technology, and getting some financial reward because of that. So I think like with the intersection between last cycle and this cycle, what I'm really excited about is the new financial innovations and mechanism designs, either that being how people tie incentives closely with the community, or in general, I think while we're waiting for the new tax being created, there's still a lot of interesting things that's going on, like a lot of people playing around with SocialFi, right? Because a lot of the DeFi kind of happen very independently as each person do their own thing. But I think leveraging the kind of social component of things will make the financial game a lot more interesting. Even when it's PvP, it just like make things a lot more fun. And I think ZK is probably still like a few years out, to be honest. If that even happens, I think a lot of use cases that ZK is especially good for are not something that people care about today just yet. It's similar story to the security hack. It's like people won't only care about security and all this when there's a big hack happening and they're like, oh man, I lost money. And people only start to use DEXs when they realize that their assets are not to be trusted with centralized exchanges. So I think something meaningful would need to happen in this world for people to drastically starting to care about ZK. Again, personal opinion, please don't hate me for saying this. And in the meantime, like one thing that crypto is always really good for is, is still like the tokenization. Like I still remember back in the days with the ICOs that people are it's just so interesting and exciting, and to decentralize this capital formation process that otherwise would only be accessed by privileged people that have access to capital. But I think ICO kind of burned and churned too quickly because there weren't that many good infrastructure back then, and also people can really take advantage of this easy access to decentralized capital formation. Similar to right now, like Pom.Fund, when you make the bar to entry effectively zero, you're also including and introducing a lot of the bad players. So I think the better way to go around things is building something that's really secure, sustainable, and thinking about how to make this long term versus kind of making a quick buck and getting out of here. Those are my thoughts about the space and ICOs and about token creation, asset creation, and just decentralized finance, man.
Perfect. Okay. I think we'll wrap it up there. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. There is a PO app. I just need to load it onto the card, so we'll get that done just afterwards. So please make sure you mint it. I'm going to get that on there right away. So, and if you don't mind, just a quick round of applause here for Suki.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And thanks, Jazzy, as well.
And once again for Jazzy. So, thanks, everybody, for putting this all together tonight. If you don't mind, fold up your chairs, and we'll see you all next week. Ciao.